Hi, my name's Lieutenant Rick Grimes, the Weymouth Police Department Special Operations Division. Today we're going to do a little bit of expansion on our canine training program and some of the changes that have gone into training and the canines specifically. A lot of new tools have come into law enforcement over the years, and as a result, canines no different. We've gotten on board with a few of them ourselves. In the past, and we still do train very fundamentally basic with the canines. We don't teach dogs to do things, we just simply enhance what they normally do on a day-to-day basis. We bring out their more basic skills, their tracking, their scent work, and those are all the things that make them successful for police work. Some of the things that we've changed is the ways that we bring those traits out in the dogs, and not huge changes, subtle changes. More specifically in the work of scent work with odor identification with narcotics and explosives today, very prevalent. Also cadaver dogs. What we used to train with was a lot of high play drive, and we've kind of transitioned from that to food drive, and we find that that's made the dogs much calmer and given us a much broader base to select dogs that are suitable for that work. In the past, again, the play drive required a dog that had a tremendous capacity for play, was crazy for play. And as a result, they associated the odor that they were trained to seek with play. And now what we've done is we've kind of gone towards a food reward system, which opens up our ability to draw dogs suitable for that type of work a great deal. And as a result, all dogs like to eat. So what we find is that the dogs become much more specific, and the process is a little bit more of a calmer overall result. In the earlier days, we trained with the play, and as a result, the dogs were given aggressive indications. In other words, they would dig and kind of paw at it and try to get right to the source, and you've seen that in earlier productions that we've done with the drug work, where the dogs would scratch very aggressively at the source of the odor. And as a handler, that made it for very difficult circumstances when we were dealing in the field with live drugs, and the dog was actively trained to seek that source of the odor. There was always the risk of the dog coming in contact with the narcotics and possibly injuring themselves. With this food reward system that Ken Ballinger, our lead trainer in the area, has developed, it's worked out outstanding. The dogs are much more specific. They're very calm and very precise. And you've seen that where the dogs will touch their nose right to the source of the odor and then look to the food reward. And only do they eat when they are absolutely correct. And it's a very calm, it's a very direct process. So that's a good tool that we have, and a little bit of a change in canine that's been very positive. Other things in technology have changed, just like years ago we didn't use microwave ovens and cell phones, and now they're just so commonplace. Canine is also moving along in that same direction. We use some of our FLIR, our forward-looking infrareds. We use the thermal imaging setups and whatnot, so we're able to see things in the dark and rely on heat sources, much like the fire services use. We've also used night vision on occasion. Some of the technology that normally we didn't use in the past, we've got out there in the field now, and that's really worked out well for us and made the canines that much more successful. So now we've kind of tempered the dog's very basic natural tendencies, and through the handlers have put a little bit of technology into play. And the two blend together very well and make the dogs that much more successful tools for law enforcement. Law enforcement uses a number of tools outside the normal patrol divisions and specialty jobs such as canine. The motorcycles have specific purposes, the Marine units, some of the entry teams and some of our metro training that you've seen in the past as well are all specific purposes. And they've got their place in police work, and they're here to stay. Canine is no different. Canine has been very successful in tracking. Primarily, I would say our biggest job that canine performs with success is tracking, and that's anything from a lost person to a disoriented elderly person that might wander off, or to track criminals from crimes, such as breaking and enterings in the nighttime where people run off. The dogs have been successful in tracking along, and you'll see some of the tracking and some of the fundamental beginning phases of tracking where the food's put down on the track and the dogs respond to that, and then they start to associate the odors of the ground disturbance and learn to follow that naturally. Because obviously when we're in the field working the dogs for crimes or lost persons, not usually are they dropping food behind them, but that works out very well for us.
My name is Ken Ballinger. I'm the Director of Canine for the Barnstable County Sheriff's Office. We're going to speak to you today about some of the changes in canine training and the ongoing training that we provide for outside agencies. Some of the most recent 3 big changes that I could think of would be the introduction of the infrared, or the FLIR, forward-looking infrared, which assists us in searching for not only for suspects or missing individuals, but also for evidence from crimes. It's been invaluable in that sense, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more. The second thing is some of the ways that we use to target our dogs now. We're actually using lasers to target the dog on a certain suspect or a certain part of the suspect, and it's a bit experimental, but we're having some success doing that. And then the third big change is the manner in which we're rewarding and training our dogs for detection work, and the detection work would be for narcotic detection, drugs, explosives detection, weapon detection, or even cadaver detection, depending on the application for it. The newest thing that we've been for about 3 years now that we've changed the way that we train our dogs is typically in years past, and even some cases now, we would look for a dog that had a high play or prey drive. They're really one and the same. And we would harness that drive to play or to chase prey and use that as our motivation, our reward system for the dogs to when they found narcotics or found guns or ammunition or explosives. What we've been doing now, because it gets harder and harder for us to find dogs with that correct level of drive, we've been using food. And the theory behind it is really kind of very, very basic. Not every dog needs to play, but every dog needs to eat. So we found that by changing our reward system, it's opening up a whole bunch more possibilities for dogs that in prior times wouldn't be serviceable, that now we can use dogs, and we've actually had pretty great success using dogs that were either rescue dogs or from the local shelters, and it's I hope it's going to be one of the things that in the future we can now get what before used to cost us maybe $3,000 to $4,000, you know, maybe under $50, we can get a dog that is as usable and in some cases more usable. The idea behind the food is that there's really no consequence if a dog doesn't get to play. There's a consequence, obviously, if the dog doesn't eat. So the learning for the dog is much more in tune with how they would choose to be rewarded if they were doing it themselves. And it also, the system is much faster for the dogs to pick up on. The other thing is, I think exclusively, that they're all passively trained. And the passive indication allows us to apply our dogs in a lot more situations that up until a couple of years ago we would not be able to put our dogs into. The flip side of a passive dog would be an aggressive indication dog, and that dog would bark, bite, and scratch in the area that they smelled, either in some cases bombs, cadavers, evidence, and narcotics, which is a little bit dangerous for the dog. So the passive is much safer for the dog, but it also allows us to use them in a lot more applications, to include searching people. In years past, canine units have not flourished because of the expense that's associated with it. There's always the liability question, but the courts, and through good policies and procedures and training, we can answer that question and take it sort of out of the equation. Second to that would be the cost factor. Typically we pay anywhere from as little as $3,500 for a dog to as much as maybe $5,000 for a dog, and that's an untrained dog. That's a dog that is just a recruit. A green candidate is the exact term that we use. It's a green dog, meaning that he has the proper temperament and character. Now we have to train him for that work. That expense is something that a lot of local smaller departments really, you know, can not see their way to putting out there. By using dogs that typically before were not considered as candidates for us, because we're using food, the cost has come down considerably. And I think that because of that, it's in a boom right now with the amount of canine units that local departments are putting on. The nice thing about the system that we train with, we do searches probably, I would say, large-scale searches either for narcotics or maybe evidence or guns in schools and things like that. We probably about once a week on a regional basis do one of those searches, and we can get maybe 8 or 10 dogs into a school. I'll use Hull as the example, where before they would be lucky to get those dogs. Now that their dogs are more cost effective and more readily available, we can have the resource out there where one small town can call and we can get 8 or 10 dogs there in a very short time for them if they have an issue for searching. One of the things that we'd like to show you today is an example of the tracking, which is for canine handlers or patrol dogs or utility dogs. The term is all the same, but for those dogs, that is the bread and butter of what we do. About 95%, 97% of what we do with a patrol dog or a police service dog is tracking or some sort of searching application. The exercise that you're going to see today is what we would consider motivational. And the idea behind it is, again, we use the food as the tool or the vehicle that motivates the dog to look for scent. Is the initial parts of the training that you'll see today. There's food in every single step that the track layer or a marked suspect, a marked missing person takes. We put a piece of food in the step. As the training progresses, the food is then spaced out instead of every step, every 3 steps, and then every 5 steps, and then every 10 steps. And then eventually just the dog's food is at the end, his portion of food that he would eat for that day. And again, it's a very natural way for the dog to learn. The exercise that you'll see with Lieutenant Grimes' dog is an example of a motivational beginning sort of track that we would do with all the dogs in the beginning. At the beginning of the track, what we're looking for is for the dog to take scent or categorize the odor that they're looking for on a track. There's 2 things that we know for sure that a dog tracks. One would be human scent, the other one would be ground disturbance. The ground disturbance would be the footprints that you can see, and the human scent is the obvious either rafts of skin or oil that are coming off the human body as we move around. Anytime the dog deviates from the exact path of the track, the handler just stops, and then when the dog takes the correct direction again, the handler will go with the dog. It's a very subtle way to reward the dog for taking the correct direction. If you can see close enough there in the footsteps that were put down by our track layer, that the footprints are actually contain the reward for the dog. So it encourages the dog to go to the place where most odor would be. One of the things that for years we used to make exception to was the environment for the dog, where we would sort of train in a very sterile environment, and we tend not to do that now, where the dog has to learn to work and be successful in the environment that they're going to work in. Till the end there, Rick, just let the line run out with a little bit of drag now. Just lock your feet. Yeah, good girl. At the end of the track for the dog is their portion of food for the day. The reason why our dogs are tracking, whether it's a missing person or a criminal suspect, is for their daily portion of food every day. One of the big challenges that as canine handlers that we're faced with is being able to target our dog on a certain area or suspect. We go to great lengths. Some of the exercises show the different stages and steps that we do to target our dog, to have them go to either pick that suspect or that area. One of the things that you will always see our handlers do, unless it was an extreme tactical situation where for officer safety we wouldn't do it, but in most cases we always offer or issue a verbal challenge to the suspect. Like any use of force that the police use, we advise them that they need to surrender and do exactly as we tell them, or the dog is going to be used to subdue them. And we're very plain in our English about that. That's something that both through department policy and for legal reasons that we encourage all of our handlers to make that. And we get a fair amount of suspects that give up immediately upon hearing that, and that actually makes our life a lot easier and safer when that happens. There's 2 things that we have recently been experimenting with to get the dogs to do that job better. Dogs are not human, so they tend to see the world in a different way not only a different level than we do, but in a different way that we see things. So targeting can be a bit of an issue. Dogs effectively can only do one job well at a time. They can't really multitask like some humans can. So we're using a laser beam now that would be a typical laser beam that would be on a sight for a rifle or for a handgun. And we're also using noise, which if directed into a certain area with either a pepper ball or airsoft gun, we can get the dog to run towards that noise, towards that specific area when they hear the pellet hit, and the dog will then start to really concentrate their search on that. The laser has been a fantastic new thing for us to experiment with. Dogs are very visual, so what that allows us to do in a low light or no light situation, we can target the dog not only to an exact area, to either have him subdue a person, but to have them also search an area, or to, in some cases, even subdue a certain part of a person. If a person was armed, for example, and we needed to get that weapon away from them, the dog could be directed to that side of the person to take that weapon out of the equation for us.
My name is Deputy John Doherty. I'm a canine officer with the Barnstable County Sheriff's Department. I've been a canine officer for approximately 9 years. Currently, I have a German Shepherd, which is my second dog. My first dog was a Bloodhound. Canine work mostly takes place at night, and working in the nighttime, we also train at night, very often working in dark conditions. To help us in training and getting used to working in these dark environments, we employ some very high-tech tools. This device I'm holding is commonly known as a FLIR, forward-looking infrared. This is very similar to the device used on helicopters that many people have seen on TV. The device does not see any light whatsoever. This lens is actually a metal lens. It's an extremely good conductor of heat, and that's all the camera sees. We can actually work in a completely dark environment, no light whatsoever, and using this camera, we can see everything in the room as different shades of temperature. We can put a person in the room, we can put a dog in the room, and we can see exactly how the dog is behaving. That to us is very important because different rooms have different air currents, and unless we can actually observe how our dog behaves to these different air currents, we can't make the necessary corrections, which enables the dog to learn properly versus learning incorrectly. So this is an extremely useful tool. We also use it in actual application. We could be out in open areas or a completely dark enclosed area and still have a very, very good view of what's going on. We can see just about everything. If there's a person standing there, their body heat emits a lot of energy, and the camera picks that up and displays that as a bright white object. We can in fact see many details such as the layer of clothing and whether the person may or may not have a gun in his hand. So this is an extremely useful tool. Again, it's almost identical to what's used on the helicopters. This is a small handheld version, battery operated. We can take this wherever we go.
We're going to speak a little bit today also about the basic canine training course. We have several handlers here that are going to give a little bit of an interview and explain their views, how it's different from maybe what they thought it was. The Patrol Dog course is a 16-week course. It's 4 months, 5 days a week, where the dogs and handlers learn the skills, the basic skills that dogs are going to need to do to perform their job, but also the handler's ability to read or interpret what their dogs are doing. We've got a bunch of new handlers here from the local area that are at various stages of finishing that basic patrol course.
Hi, my name is Tom Flannery. I'm a patrolman with Braintree Police Department, just new on the K-9 unit. We had an opening in our department. Unfortunately, one of the sergeants, his dog had passed away, so there was an opening. I put in for it. My dad was a canine handler in the Korean War, so the stories he talked to me about, his experience, some of the guys that I know that are also on canine, used to be state police canine guys, they told me how great of an opportunity it was. I thought it'd be a good chance for me to get on it. Canine, there's I think there's some more opportunity for hands-on with the tracking. It's kind of that whole adrenaline rush you can get. You're gonna be the guy chasing the bad guy through the forest and tracking him down and hopefully making some good arrests. I think it's just you're putting patrol and canine together at the same time. So I'm still out there covering a sector. I'll be responsible for doing what I was previously doing. But when a call comes in to use a dog, naturally, I'll be the guy to be going out there. I had a somewhat idea what the dogs can do, but then actually going through the training to see how the dogs evolve, they're so intelligent, and then channeling their intelligence and focusing on exactly, what they do day to day and how they track. It's just amazing how they can, pick up footprints and follow to the source. Then their ability to make contact, their agility, they are a lot more animal than I thought they could be. So it just, my eyes were opened. I think that then watching, the other dogs that have started before my dog and seeing how they got to their level, and then progressively watching my dog get to that point has been really wonderful experience.
My name is Officer Steven Summers, the Rockland Police Department. Approximately a year ago, our department opened up a position for a canine handler, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to further my career, so I put in for the job. I've been on the Rockland Police Department in the patrol unit for approximately 2 years. I think as a canine handler, you have to do everything the patrol unit would do as a regular patrolman, but you also now have the added responsibilities of the canine and everything that goes with it. We have 2 weeks of school left, and then I'm looking forward to starting my shift in a couple weeks, doing everything I had to do on top of the canine stuff. The training's 16 weeks for patrol school. I'm currently entering into my 15th week. I have 2 weeks left, and the training's been very, very intense, more than I ever imagined. I don't think I really expected what goes into the care and maintenance of the canine. It's really a 24-hour-a-day job. When you leave training, you don't just go home. You still have to care for the dog and do everything at home also. Yeah, I have 2 weeks of patrol school left. I'm looking forward to going back to the community and bringing this tool back to the community to benefit the public of Rockland.
I'm Officer Steve Kingsley with the Bridgewater Police Department. About a year ago, I was in Del Monte and had a canine Gorby that passed away, and he served the town of Bridgewater for approximately 8 years. Being such a small department, we never thought that we'd ever get another dog again, even though he did such a good job with the dog. Fortunate enough, we received a grant from Russell Cook that funded the program, and it opened up a position which I applied for. Training with the dog has been very fun, but it's been very challenging. I never realized prior to coming to training how physically demanding it is. Getting bit by the dogs and taking muzzle hits. Just training with the dogs. Had a pet growing up all my life, but never realized, how much training goes into this. It's not just a 8-hour day. After we leave here, we have to do some homework at home, whether it's doing tracks with the dogs or obedience, or if you have a drug dog, working drugs with the dog. Even when you're not working on your normal shift or you're not at training, you still have to keep up with the relationship with the dog. After the initial 16 weeks training that we received from Kenny Ballinger, then every other week for the rest of the dog's career, we'll be doing in-service training. So there's a lot of training that goes involved. As well, when I go back to my department, Bridgewater belongs to the Setauket Regional Tactical Team, which consists of Bridgewater, East Bridgewater, and West Bridgewater for a special response team, kind of like a SWAT team. And the dog will be integrated into the team. So we train once a month. So not as long as training for every other week for the rest of the dog's career. For the in-service training for canine, I'll also be training with the tactical team as well. After we're training here, I'll be going back to the midnight to 8 shift. I'm looking forward to going back on the shift with all the guys. I've enjoyed the training here. I just kind of miss, working with the guys at Bridgewater PD. And I can't wait to bring the dog back and work with the dog. Dunny and myself back of the midnight to 8 shift.
Just slightly past, but don't pull in front. Just slightly. Training for any police officer or law enforcement officer is the most integral part of what we do. In stressful situations that our dogs are put into, we need to make sure that they will do under stress what they were trained to do. So we emphasize that. The great thing about our training is because it is regional, we've got folks from tiny departments that have 1 dog to departments that maybe have 10 dogs, small cities, big cities, little towns, and everything in between. So the benefit to having that pool of officers is there's a bunch of resources and experience that they have, and we pool all those resources and use that and gear that towards our training. And it's a sort of a hidden benefit to the regionalization of having lots of different places, whether it's Lieutenant Grimes from Weymouth or a lot of the handlers are tactical officers as well on SWAT teams or firearms instructors. I think that the training is something that a lot of folks maybe have a different conception of what it is, and I hope that the tape and the things that we have videoed here show a little bit more real world. It's not the Hollywood stuff. This is the nuts and bolts of how we train our dogs, and I hope you enjoy it.
Well, in today's episode, you've seen a lot of aspects of training. You've also seen some regional training. What we've had going on during this training period is a class for new dogs, for handlers, and you've got to hear from some of them relative to their thoughts on canine, new handlers. It's always interesting to hear what their expectations are of the job. So the regional aspect of canine has always been huge. In a society now where we're going with regionalization in law enforcement is very, very big. Putting our resources together. Canine has been one of the 4 leaders to that from way back. Mutual aid is a common term that's used when agencies lend assistance to other agencies. Canine has been mutual aid receptive for years and years. In the 10+ years that I've been involved in canine, it was well in place before I came along. And that's simply because not every city and town has canine. So when one does have a good active canine program in an area and they need assistance, they always reach out to that neighboring community that might have it. And what you're seeing as a result of the training that you've seen in this session and some of the outside agencies, you see more and more police departments that are embracing canine and bringing dogs on. We've gone from a time when there might be 1 or 2 dogs working in an area to where almost every community has canines and maybe 1 or 2 that do not. And even with that, we're adding programs almost on a weekly basis. We've got other communities that have contacted us and are looking to come on board with canine teams. And we all train together, we all work together. And that's a huge advantage to us because when we do get together on scene or in another community, we're all familiar with each other, we're familiar with each other's canines, and as a result, the process flows much better. We know what to expect from one another, we know what each dog's strengths and weaknesses are, and it makes it that much more successful. So this type of programming gives you an opportunity to see how all the dogs work together, how they start their training, how they transition through their training, some of the new advances in technology. And as the canine programs continue, you'll continue to hear from us on this and see our other advances.